The Parra Cave podcast, proudly brought to you by major sponsor Jack's Pale Ale, exclusively available at Parramatta Leagues Club, Shannon Cooney from Glenmore Park Realty, BTZD Clothing, and the official media partner of the Parra Cave podcast, the Parramatta Times.
Welcome to another episode of the Parra Cave podcast. And now over to your host, Troy Warner, broadcasting live from the world-famous Parra Cave.
And today on the podcast, I've got a returning guest on the podcast, and he certainly will know what we are talking about, because during the week, the Parramatta Eels, they have released their Anzac Round jersey, and who better to talk to than Thom from Retro Rugba Leeg, because he's all over this stuff. He knows every club's jersey that comes out, he's all over it. He knows the stories. So I've had a look at the Parramatta Eels jersey this year. I've had a quick look and read about the stories, but I thought I'd get Thom on and we can go in depth with it. But how you going, Thom? Good?
Yeah, I'm doing great. Roosters had a win last night, which was good. Some Newey fans won't be happy about that, but a little bit chirpy. And my second team, the Dolphins, last time I checked, were up 4-0. So we'll see by the time recording whether that's a good or bad omen to talk about.
Yes. Well, I was a Newcastle fan last night, and they let me down in the tips. So, yeah, no good there. But
I actually did tip them too, so there you go.
Well, there we go. But we are here to talk about the Anzac Round jersey that Parramatta released during the week. And look, first thoughts about it when I saw it, it was really interesting with the V and the wave dots. It just a different looking Parramatta Eels Anzac jersey. So they were my first thoughts about it. What were your first thoughts about it?
I won't drop who, but I was tipped off to what it was going to be. But the picture I saw was of a player hunched over, kind of wearing it. So I saw the V taper, and I saw what looked like dots across or lines across the belly, which looked very similar to the jersey you've got up on screen there with the belt. And so I thought, is this another rehash of the same thing? I wasn't too impressed. And to be honest, when I saw the design at first, I thought, okay, that looks clean, looks a bit bland. I don't get it. Once I dug into the history, then I got it, and I think that's the great thing with these Anzac jerseys is we're telling stories that we wouldn't otherwise tell or have any reason to know about, and I think it's a win.
Yeah, that's the first thing that I thought of as well. It's very simple and simplistic, and there's not a lot of design on there, so to speak, because there is the V and the dotted waves there, and as I said, clean, simplistic, and I'm like you, I'm always interested in the stories that it tells. So let's get into the stories. Where do you want to start? You want to start with the V or the dotted waves?
Let's leave the dotted waves to the end, because that's the biggest story.
Okay.
But let's go through the little elements.
Yep.
So the V taper here is modelled after the 19th century sailor's uniform. So if you were to hold up a picture of that, you would see a gentleman in a largely black or navy blue uniform with the kind of collar going over that would have three lines coming down to the knot. So that's what's going on with the three lines coming into a V-like formation across the front of the Parramatta jersey there. That's relevant because the HMAS Parramatta is the oldest name in naval history, Australian naval history.
Yep.
And so the HMAS Parramatta 1, I think, was launched in 1910. Now, it's coming into the 20th century, but that's the kind of era that's coming out of. Later on, the Australian Navy adopted the predominantly white uniform, which we'll see on the South Sydney jersey, but that's where the modelling comes from on the V.
Yeah, no, interesting, and I haven't seen it quite in the flesh yet, but are they white? Is it a white V?
Or is I haven't seen it either, apart from the
gold one.
Yeah, it's a bit hard to tell, because even on the home your standard home jersey, the gold isn't quite your normal gold. It's an off-whitey gold. So whether they're using that same color, I'm not sure.
Okay.
The whole lighting of it was a little washed out. So that's what I said that in my video too. I'd like to see that in person to see whether those yellows will be a bit brighter. But I think, well, we know that the dots are both gold and white.
Okay.
We'll get to that in a second.
Yep. And on each of the sleeves, so on one sleeve there's 2 words on there, strike deep.
That's correct.
What can you tell us about that one?
Yeah, so strike deep was a motto that was come up by a standby crewman in the 1960s to kind of sum up what he obviously felt and thought being upon the HMAS Parramatta was about. I believe that the whole emphasis is about we're going into the heart of the enemy here, and so we are going to strike deep and we're going to make it hurt. Yep. But also being on such a large boat, if you are trying to use depth charges and stuff like that to get to submarines below, or to use your artillery to pound into the core of the enemy, then you really do want to strike deep into the heart and cause fear. And so that was created by a standby crewman in the 1960s. In 1961, it was officially adopted by the Royal Australian Navy on the HMAS Parramatta.
Nice. And
which would have been the Parramatta 3 by then. Okay,
yeah. And I believe on the other sleeve there is the Royal Australian Navy logo. Is that correct?
That's it, for the HMAS Parramatta, yes, which was modelled after the City Council logo, which was, I think, from 1939. Which shows an image of an Aboriginal man spearing an eel in shallow water. Parramatta fans will be familiar with that image because on the original 1947, is that when Parramatta became established?
1947. Correct.
It was 47. Yes. So that was the logo. So the Aboriginal man spearing the eel, and the I don't know if it was a First Fleet ship or a ship going by in the background, and that kind of developed it from there. Of course, that's how we get the name, the Parramatta Eels. So yes, that's what's on the other sleeve. And
it came back slightly. That logo came back slightly in 2017 on the Eels jersey with the current logo as well. So I didn't mind that one actually, and a lot of fans do like that Aboriginal man spearing logo, so it's pretty good, that one. And I believe there is writing, is it on the inside or the outside of the back of the collar?
It's on the outside. I don't think there's anything written on the inside of the collar of these ones. So on the back, on a red ribbon, it says "We will remember them," which is pretty standard or classic Anzac fare. Yep.
Nice. And the waved dots, the gold and white dots there, that's a pretty important story too, isn't it?
Yeah, so that tells the story of the HMAS Parramatta 2, which was sunk during the Second World War in November 1941. So it was struck by a torpedo from a German U-boat, which sunk the boat. Because the torpedo hit into the side of the boat where the ammunition was stored, caused a large explosion, and the whole boat sunk in minutes, which is a great feat, as in a huge feat, for such a large boat. Unfortunately, what that meant was that 138 of the crew on board perished, but 24 survived. And so on that wave formation, there are 138 yellow dots, which remember those people who passed away, but 24 white dots, which remember those people who survived the attack.
Nice. Those features of the jersey are just do have great stories and meaning to why the jersey is like that. I've spoken to a couple of people and they're not a big fan of it. It just doesn't look like Parramatta, or and some of them have been ex-military people as well. But I mean, it's always, I guess, hard to please everybody to try and get a design. But the thing, as I said, the thing I like about it is the fact that the story and the meaning behind the jersey.
For the ex-military people who were not a fan, were they not a fan on the Parramatta front because they didn't think it looked Parramatta enough, or they weren't a fan on the military front?
I think it was more it didn't look Parramatta enough.
Sure.
And I guess with these Anzac jerseys, it's probably hard to get like a Parramatta look, or any team's look, to be honest, because they try and, I guess all clubs try and mix it up a bit and try and really get a design that's representative of the armed forces.
Yeah, it's interesting. Different clubs have different takes on this. So, as you saw with South Sydney, if you've seen that jersey, so it's a white naval uniform. I've got a video coming out about that tomorrow, and in that video, I didn't realise this until I read the article that this is their third year in a deliberate partnership with the Australian Navy.
Okay.
So that's why last year they had the submarine, the black and the grey, and I believe the year before that was the sky blue with remember they had the bunny in the circle.
Oh,
the
yes.
red and green circle.
Yep.
I think that was the one from the year before. So they've done a deliberate partnership with the Navy and exploring elements of that. Manly have just put out their jersey, which is also a naval themed one. Newcastle have put out theirs, and I'm going to hold total judgment off on that until I get the explanation. But I'm not impressed with what I've seen first. And a follower tipped me off to the fact that the image used on it is the first image you find on Google Images when you Google F-35 over Newcastle. So that's not a good start if that's the case. But we'll hold off on that until we know exactly what we're talking about. The Gold Coast, instead of releasing an Anzac jersey, have released an Anzac Captain's Run shirt, which isn't a bad idea to fit in the quota of their jersey. So they're still playing around with that idea. And it's based off another jersey that they've done in the past. So I'll do a deep dive on that in time. But then you've got clubs like the Roosters who are going with the Bondi blue or the sky blue looking jersey again for the fourth year in a row. Apparently in some circles they've made a commitment that they're going to stick with that design. I've got question marks on why that is. I had a discussion with someone who used to work for Castor, and so I was asking, was it Castor's decision to keep the same design? They seem to think that it might have been the Roosters' decision, but they weren't exactly sure. There's a bit going on there. I made a video about that, and I'm fine with the design because it's become kind of part of the club.
Yep.
It's not the only Anzac story, though, that the Roosters have to tell. They were around in the First World War, and there's stories there to tell. They were around in the first part of the Second World War when that jersey wasn't in effect, and there's stories to tell. They were also around in the Vietnam War, the Korean War, Afghan War, you name it. There's more stories to tell. So I'm okay with that, but let's tell some stories. Let's not just say this is something we wore and pretend like it's the only thing we've ever worn.
The Roosters, though, they're known for having like the same home jersey forever, aren't they? So maybe they're going down those sort of lines.
Well, they are. Well,
there's not many changes to their home jersey at least.
There's a couple of myths that surround the Roosters. I know this isn't a Roosters podcast.
No, that's fine.
But there's this myth that the way that we are is the way that we've always been. Don't question it, and that's just not true. So the original 1908 Rooster strip was predominantly red with the white and blue bands. It then switched over to predominantly blue with the red and white bands. Hoops, we're talking here. It wasn't until around about the time of the war that they even brought in chevrons because you weren't allowed to have hoop jerseys because it took up too much material.
Okay.
And then they kind of kept chevrons from there on out modelled after the French rugby and rugby league jersey. That's where the Roosters emblem comes from too. But we forget all that previous history, which is actually the longer end. When you're around for 100 plus years, that's the longer end of the history. So there's just a little bit of myth telling going on there when we think that this is the only thing that we've ever had and we can never play with anything different. Where teams like the Warriors or the Broncos have constantly played with their designs all the time. And so I can hear a stance where some Warriors fans would wish, can we have a jersey that's just ours so we always know which team we're going for?
No, fair enough.
There's back and forth.
Yeah. Well, getting back to the Parramatta one, out of a 10, what would you give this year's Anzac jersey out of 10, in your opinion? Because you've seen a lot of them.
If I was just looking at the design, it's not my favourite, but I'd say it's a solid 6, 7-ish. Yep. Once you pull the stories into it, it takes it to a stronger 7, maybe 7.5, squeezing onto an 8. It's not my favourite design, and some of the designs you've got on the screen I kind of like more, but it tells a story, and that's what's important about these Anzac jerseys. Someone made a comment the other day that if we're going to use these Anzac jerseys to say we're on about Anzac and remembering the heroes past and present and future, that we should actually be contributing towards that, and I think that's a very good point. that possibly a portion of sales or profits should be going to return service leagues or something like that to actually support diggers. If we say we're helping them, then we actually should.
I think Parramatta have done that in the past, and I'm pretty sure they'll do that again this year with the sales from their jerseys from the club. That a portion will go back to return services and retired services, and which is a great thing. I know that we've done Air Force a few times, and that's gone back to the Air Force people, and this is the first time we're actually doing the Navy as well. So we've done the Army a couple of times and the Air Force a couple of times, and this is the first time we've done a Navy-based Anzac jersey. A lot of people really criticise the one on the far right, the gum bark inspired jersey. A lot of people said that looked like a bit of vomit, and stuff like that.
Oh, so is that from the Battle of Long Tan? Was that a Vietnam-inspired jersey, was it?
I think it was basically sort of like the gums around the Parramatta area back in the day, okay. Where the armed forces were based. So they actually got it from there, I think. So it's not, I must admit, it's not the best looking jersey. I think we might have won in that game. I think it was against Newcastle. We could have lost actually, but I think Jake Arthur was playing halfback, but no fault of Jake's. And yeah, that's not their favourite. The first one on that side, 2015, I think it was. That's a nice, simple one, I think. A light blue colour with the.
It must be after. Oh, are you talking about the one with the soldiers at the last post there? Sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry, my apologies. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
And then I think there was 100 years of the Air Force next to the Gumtree one. Last year's one up in the top right-hand corner, that one was pretty reasonable and looked good. It's basically based off a army uniform from back in the day. As you can see, the belt across the front there. And yeah, so I think this year's one sort of ranks back up there, but I think maybe in my opinion anyway, as a fan, the last year's one probably takes the number one, but I do like the other two Air Force ones. I don't know where this one will rank at the moment.
Yeah, I probably prefer, I don't know if it's a Spitfire or a Kitty Hawk on the front of one there, but that's probably my favourite of the ones I can see in front of me.
Yeah.
Here we go, we'll see if it shows up on the green screen or not.
Oh, probably not, but nah. Ooh. Nah.
Does it have a shark mouth on the plane? Can't quite. Yeah, that might be a Kitty Hawk. I can't quite tell.
Let me have a look. No, it doesn't actually say what sort of plane it is, but the RAF servicemen and women and Indigenous communities who served in the Northern Territory during World War II in the Pacific.
Yeah. Okay. All right. I thought it may have had something to do with the bombing of Darwin or something like that. I'm not sure. I will say that we have come a long way from the stock standard, or the literal stock image of, the last post soldier or just some random soldier, or, last year the debacle with West Tigers who pulled a stock image of an American soldier, which was spotted by servicemen. And I can see why there's a lot of conjecture is the right word, but there's a lot of debate around Anzac jerseys about which way they should go. Some people just say, look, they should be super minimalist with a poppy, rosemary sprig, an Anzac appeal logo. That's it. Other people say, well, we should pick something and stick with it, and that's kind of where the Roosters are at. And then there's kind of a third camp which says, look, give us new designs, but tell us good stories. Don't get lazy. And we've thankfully gone away from that largely, it seems. Like I said, we'll reserve judgment on a team we mentioned before. But we don't want to go back to those bad old days because I think that was a little corporate greedy. But when we get chances for myself or kids of this day and age to look at something they really enjoy, rugby league, but to also be thrown into the history of their own country and for the servicemen who lived and died for them or are currently fighting for them, that's a really good thing. Same with the Indigenous jerseys. Like, put in the effort to find out what's going on in those designs. Don't just look at the pretty colours. Pull something out, a story out that lives in your area and go, that's what that's about.
Yeah, no, definitely. The story gets everyone involved and they can learn from that and learn the history and go from there. I think Penrith, they've gone for a pretty similar sort of standard Anzac jersey with the poppy, I think, and I think they have like a row of poppies for their red line across the chest, I think.
I haven't seen.
I may have seen
this one this year.
I'm not 100% sure, but I could be even talking about last year's one where they did that across the chest, but they'd have to release it pretty soon.
Yeah, Anzac jerseys aren't compulsory, so teams can or cannot if they so choose to, but they have to do an Indig one.
Yeah.
Doesn't look like, from what I can see, that they have an Anzac one at present. They do have that Pacifica jersey, though.
That's right.
I'm not sure if that counts as their Indigenous jersey or if it's just an alternate. I don't know.
Yeah, it's certainly an interesting one. I guess with the big jersey debate about the cost of jerseys, you can't just be bringing out 4, 5, 6 jerseys a year. Otherwise, it just gets too expensive. I mean, you got, as you said, Indigenous jerseys, Anzac jerseys, home, away, alternate, heritage. There's 6 already, so the cost does.
Women in league jerseys as well. Throw them in there too.
I don't think Parramatta have had a women in league one for a long time, to be honest.
Okay.
And female fans do cry out for one every year because they always say, well, you get an Indigenous one, you get an Anzac one. What about a women in league one? Look, I'd even be happy if Parramatta played in pink socks for the round. I think that'd be a nice touch and look good as well. But I think there was one 5 years ago, and it had all the female members' names on the jersey, which was a nice touch. You could put your you could get your name on the jersey, female members. So I think that was a nice touch, but that was, I think, 5 years ago, and I don't think we've had one since.
Two other things on jerseys. So the cost of jerseys, as we know, is quite high, and that's something that we've been talking about. I've been trying to do a bit of a dive on that. I'm still piecing the story together about if we were to change that, who's got to take the cut, who's got to wear the cost. And I'm kind of hearing different stories on who I talk to, whether it's the NRL, whether it's the manufacturer, whether it's the designer, whether it's the retailer. So I'm still trying to piece that story together. But the other good news for Parramatta fans is that, of course, if you buy it from the website and you are a member, you get a 15% discount, which would take it to 136 instead of 160. And I think that probably 130 figure, if we were to come down, that would be an achievable figure. From some people I spoke to, I don't think we can get to the $100 figure, but 130 could be a thing.
Yeah, no, they definitely help out families in this cost of living crisis, and those that have got lots of kids as well, and jersey collectors like myself as well. And yeah, it definitely has to come down, and that's a good initiative. And I'm pretty sure that most clubs would do that. I definitely know, as you said, Parramatta do that as part of the membership as well, that you get that discount in the club shop. So that's good. I think that's a great idea. I think that, yeah, it could even come down lower. I think maybe the NRL should take a minor hit, I guess, of the money that they get. I mean, obviously they're the owners of the clubs and the product, I guess, but if they took a minor hit with everything else that they're making money off, I'm sure they could take a minor hit. And I think, as I've said before, if you make it lower, even though you might be losing a little bit, you may end up selling more anyway. So you may sort of either break even or make a little bit more money.
Yeah, and that's the difficulty of the argument at the moment is you talk to one person and they'll say, well, the NRL's holding the cards, they need to drop the license. And, you talk to someone more on the NRL side of things for a licensing thing, and they say, it's not us, it's someone else. There was a little segment in that Get 'Em On Side show where Dan Ganane was talking with Joel Kane and the other guy whose name I can't recall.
Joel Kane and the other guy. Yeah.
The betting guy.
Yeah.
And they made a point, and I spoke to someone else about this and they weren't 100% sure whether it was the case or not, but on the show, Dan Ganane was saying that all the money that comes in from licensing gets pooled together and then split evenly around 17 clubs.
Okay.
So the money that's just based on the licensing figure, which by the numbers he was working at, he came out to about, I think, $8 per jersey sold would go back to the club, but that would all get pooled together and distributed. Now, that sounds a little strange that, like, if Penrith in a premiership year and selling a ton of jerseys, why should the Titans benefit from that?
Yeah, definitely.
That's what Dan Ganane was saying, and maybe his source is far better than mine. I don't understand how that works. I would like to know. But it is possible for clubs to do clever things to drop the price of jerseys. I can tell you this now, that the CQ Capras, it was the second tier side in Queensland for the kind of central Queensland area, they put out for their fans, instead of like a jersey that's like proper jersey material, they put out an imitation version of the jersey made out of the training shirt material.
Okay.
For $62.
Yeah, okay.
What a bargain.
Yeah,
so yeah, $100 less basically than the NRL things, but you're wearing it to support your team. You're not playing in it.
No.
And so, a cut down version of that is a fantastic idea. And so maybe that's a measure that would stop some of the fakes, because the fake versions of jerseys aren't as high quality. So maybe if Parramatta were to put out, say, the jersey they have, and then a fan version, we'll call it, and it's the playing sort of training material, much lighter, thinner, cheaper, for a half the price, that may solve the problem too.
Yeah, definitely. I think that fans would go for that for sure. I mean, those training shirts, the captain's run shirts, they're pretty comfortable, to be honest. So if it's exactly the same design as a jersey, why not? As you said, you're not playing in them, so you don't need them to be strong and tough.
And the collectors will still pay it, because the collectors pay it no matter what. I mean, people who are buying vintage jerseys will pay quite an exorbitant amount for the designs they're after in whatever condition that they're in. But the average fan who just wants to go to the game and say, let it be known that I'm a Parramatta fan or a Dolphins fan or a Rooster fan or Bulldogs fan, they just want something comfortable that they can grab, that says what team they're on, and that they don't mind getting dirty so you can chuck it in the wash and go again. And that $60 price point, I think, is $60, $70 is probably there and thereabouts.
Yeah, definitely something to think about for sure. We see with the Indigenous jerseys a lot of Indigenous people getting involved in design. Do you think maybe with the Anzac jerseys, military people can get involved in designs of jerseys?
Well, I think they are. By that I mean, I think for the most part, clubs are consulting with not only the Army or the Navy, but within this case, the crew of the HMAS Parramatta or someone in that area.
Okay.
And that was a story, I think, if you recall, last year around the West Tigers, that they said, well, we interacted with these people at a certain barracks, and the barracks said, we'd never heard of you, and that's where all the confusion and whatever arose. But supposedly that's what's going on, that they're supposed to be interacting with the particular people, unless you're someone like the Roosters who are saying, well, we're going to wear something that's representative of us during the wartime period, which is why their jersey is called the wartime jersey, not the Anzac jersey.
Interesting one. Interesting. Well, yeah, I think it's good to get people involved in that one from the military, as they do with the Indigenous jersey. Now, there was something else that you wanted to talk about with me about the Talking Parra podcast. They put out a post, a boycott post. What would you like to ask about that one?
Well, this is the question for you. So I didn't quite understand it for a start. All the things that I've seen from Parramatta fans commenting on social media or whatever at the moment has been supremely negative. I understand things aren't going the way that you'd like on the paddock, but the amount of it that I'm seeing is like, wow, so early in the season. And then I saw this post come up and I thought, what's going on here? Troy will be the one who knows. So what's the story? What's the boycott? And will it happen?
Look, I don't think the boycott will happen because I think the fans just love their team too much and love being at games, so I don't think that'll happen. The idea about it was supposedly boycott the game on the weekend if Brad Arthur didn't make changes to the team that lost to Canberra. So rather than keep the same team, if he didn't make changes, then boycott the game to show that, you haven't made changes, you don't care about the team, you don't care about winning, you're just keeping the same team, so we're not going to support you. I think there's a lot of fans too that are unhappy with the club's merchandise as well. They're not too happy with the fluoro yellow logos and sponsorships as well that you can see on the club shirts. I mean, I must admit myself, I'm not a massive fan of that either.
I actually really like it. I thought that's the best thing Macron's done. Yeah, how funny. From the outside looking in, I thought they actually looked cool.
Well, there's others. There's plenty of others like yourself that do like that look. I'm not a fan of it. I don't like it. And fans are saying too that if you don't like it, then don't buy it and don't spend your hard-earned on it, and the club will realise that if you're not spending your hard-earned on them, then they're doing something wrong, and hopefully change can come a part of it. So I think that's a little bit about what it was about. I think a little bit was to do with Brad Arthur as well as coach. He'd been there for 11 years, and there's games two games probably that stand out. Obviously the game against the Tigers, maybe the game against the Raiders. Well, maybe the game against the Raiders, but definitely the performance they put in against the Raiders was disappointing as well. So they're probably games that we probably could have won. Obviously, it's going to be difficult without Mitchell Moses in the team, being a key linchpin. But so it was just about trying to get a message across. That if there wasn't any changes to the team, that they would boycott the game and not turn up to show a sign of disappointment, I guess.
What would be interesting to know, and you might have some listeners who could give us some details on this. I tried to find this out today and I couldn't. What are the rights or the abilities of a member and their rights or their right of appeal or whatever within a club context? So obviously members have rights in around, the amount of games they could go to or what discounts they can get and things relating to kind of money and merchandise. But what rights do members have in regards to voting, in regards to, do they have the right to be heard by not just the membership staff, but do they have the right to be able to, want to appeal to the CEO or what? I don't know. I'd be interested to know, and maybe you have some listeners who could clue us in on those details.
Well, I do know that Parramatta used to have what was called a membership council, where a group of members used to meet up each quarter, I think it was, and would listen to the membership team and various people from the club, and they were basically a voice for the fans. So if any fans or members had any I guess you could call issues or ideas or something, they could pass it to the membership council, they could pass it on, and that would get to the club. I don't know if any other clubs do that sort of thing, but that's definitely a way of getting to the club and getting information to the club. In terms of anybody else getting information to the club, I don't know for any other club, but I know for Parramatta, I guess it's just a simple thing of emailing the membership team and voicing it that way. I don't know if you'd have a direct line to the CEO or anything about your gripes or concerns or what, but I know with the league, Parramatta Leagues Club, that if you definitely if you sign up for a member for them, I think it's 3 consecutive years, then you are able to vote in elections, and you can actually also have a say at election meetings as well, as part of the audience, and you can raise your concerns there. But that's for the Parramatta Leagues Club, which I think owns Parramatta Eels, so they're two separate entities. So that's a way that fans and members, I guess, could get involved. They could become a member of the Leagues Club 3 years consecutive, and then they could participate in election voting.
Yeah, it'd be interesting if you have any membership experts or lawyers or whoever who sit behind the scenes. There's a whole world that I'm discovering that lives behind, that inside and around the corner of rugby league, that sits well away from just the game that happens on the field. There's all these little curtains you pull back, and people say, "Oh, it's not like that," and it's not that comfortable behind these closed doors, and these people don't really get along, and all those kind of things. So yeah, who knows what will come out?
It's very political, isn't it? Like, it's political. It's it's one of those things that sometimes, if you scratch my back, I'll scratch yours, sort of thing. And it's about knowing the right people and trying to get involved and getting involved that way. I mean, I'd love to get involved more with Parramatta, to be honest, and do more there. But sometimes I do, but sometimes I don't. So I used to be on the membership council, which was good and fantastic and involved, because you do get a little bit of a inside knowledge to what's happening in the club, and specifically membership wise, but also other little bits as well. But that was fantastic, but not on that anymore. But it's always good to get involved with a club that you support, and try and forward the ideas. And I guess for someone like yourself who's a jersey expert, then talking to the Roosters about jersey design and whatever, that could be your forte for them.
Yeah, I hesitate to call myself a jersey expert. I think I accidentally let that slip in a video, but I should have said, and I have said in other places, jersey nerd is probably the better term, because I have zero design experience. I've got a lot of experience with stories and symbolism and meaning, and pulling apart of stories and showing where we've been and where we're going. But I don't have a degree or whatever in design, so I need some friends to get on board with me there, and that's why I'm happy to hear those stories and to hear people from behind the scenes, and times where I've been critical of the design team and people have sent me messages and saying it's not actually the design team's fault on this one. The club specifically asked for this, or wouldn't let us change the colour scheme, or wouldn't let us change the design. So there's a whole world that sits behind there, and I'm just enjoying hearing the stories and piecing it all together as best I can, but also the bit I can put out to the fans, and they seem to be liking it too. So that's great.
And as a rugby league nerd, jersey nerd, how do Anzac jerseys resale? Or do they? Or not really?
They do for certain teams. So St George, I've had quite a few messages and things in the past from St George fans, particularly around that, I think it's like 2005, 2006 era, for people who recall. St George had they were Anzac jerseys because they wore them on Anzac Day to play against the Roosters. There wasn't actually particularly anything military about them, but they had a lot of these kind of really sharp V lines, sometimes grey implemented in there too. And there was a game, I think, where Matty Head is very famous for wearing one of these jerseys and beating the Roosters, I think by a goal kick on the day, I think
that might have been from the sideline, I think, yeah.
So those jerseys are really well sought after. Some of the 2008, 2009 Bondi Blue jerseys from the Roosters, fans want those. Some of the other ones, it seems to be a bit hit and miss as to how much effort went into the design. They're not usually the things that people look after. I tell you now, though, this is the early call. In 40 years' time, when we look back, everyone will want that South Sydney jersey, that white one. Everyone hates it now. Yeah. And the video I'll put out tomorrow, my exclusive to you, is I'll actually go out and say it's my favourite of all the ones that have been released so far. I haven't seen the Warriors one yet. But but I guarantee you in 40 years' time, that will be like the Gold Coast Chargers. That's what everyone will want because they love ugly stuff in the future, and that's what they'll want.
Well, in 40 years' time, will they like the Manly Anzac jersey of a few years ago where that was the camouflage look? Or
yeah, the baby spew. Yeah, maybe there are some. I mean, people really love the old Chocolate Soldiers Penrith jerseys at the moment, and they're ugly as. So, yeah, there's just a trend for every time and season.
Yeah, that's probably why they changed the colours of their jersey. Well, I'll definitely be adding this jersey to the collection of not only Parramatta jerseys but the Anzac Round jerseys, and I think we'll probably be wearing this maybe next weekend up in Darwin against the Dolphins.
Okay.
Which will be before Anzac Day. I'm only guessing.
Yes,
I'm only guessing at this, but I'm assuming we'll wear this one next week against the Dolphins up in Darwin next Friday night. I think we play Manly. I think it's Manly on the Friday night after Anzac Day, so I don't think we'll wear that one because I think teams generally wear it at their home games anyway. In and around Anzac Day. I know that sometimes...
not quite sure.
Yeah, I know sometimes that away teams don't tend to wear their Anzac Round jerseys on in that round.
Well, the only one thing that may... the one thing I'm always bad at is other people are really great at this, and RL Jerseys is the man for this. He always tells you which jersey and what round, and he gets these little cool stats about, like, every time the Broncos wore this jersey this year, they won or lost, and how many have they won in the home and away. He's your man for those kind of stats. But the Dolphins Anzac jersey this year is predominantly white. So if they were to wear it as an away, it would work. It wouldn't conflict at all or be mistaken at all if Parramatta wore theirs and the Dolphins wore theirs. And theirs is a really great effort too. You should go and check out that. And once again, I've done a reel on that jersey as well, in the history of Anzac Parade down Redcliffe. But they've done a really good job, and they basically took last year's design and improved it 100%. Yeah.
Well, that'd give them a massive advantage playing in Darwin with the humidity, playing in white.
I don't think it makes much difference at night time, unfortunately.
Well, yeah, this is it. But look, I think also too, I don't know what it is, whether it's the suppliers or the clubs, but maybe they should be released a lot earlier in April, I think, just to get that time to get them out to people, because I know a lot of Parramatta fans, it only got released on, Tuesday, I think it might have been, Tuesday or Wednesday, and they were worried about the leeway in terms of, is it going to get to us by Anzac Day?
Well, the Dogs, they only released their 04 Heritage jersey a day or 2 days before they wore it against the Roosters. And so there was quite a big thing where I assume you went down either to the club or to the stadium and you picked up your jersey, and there was the original 04 team there. You could get it signed by them and whatever if you wanted. It depends how the marketing departments want to play these games. Do they want to be like, bang, it's in your face and here's this exclusive thing? Do they want to give people plenty of warning like South Sydney did? Do they want to deny that it exists and pretend that it's nothing happening like a certain blue and gold team did? They all play different games and they have different strategies on how they want to release things. I'm still trying to get my head around how far in advance these things are designed and locked in. I'm starting to gather that it's 12 to 18 months, but I don't know that yet. I'm starting to piece all those things together. But it seems to be at that point that the design team has finished and they've handed it over to the marketing department. It's up to them to release and to come out with their plans. And as we've seen a couple of times, sometimes the retailer beats the marketing team to the punch, and someone's told to take something down because it may not have been released yet. So, yes.
I actually do remember I can't remember whether it was an Indigenous jersey or a Parramatta Anzac jersey, but a retailer did release that as well before it was released by the club, and they were saying, how did they know about that? How did they get that? And yeah, it was quite interesting because people had already seen it before the club released it. So yeah, they did that. Well, Thom,
and that's where I think. Just one last comment, and then we'll wrap it up. I was just going to say, I think that's where clubs need to start coming back on board with the fans now. I think in the past there was a real trend of where clubs held everything back, and we don't trust the fan, and we don't want to get them involved. We know what's best, and I think it is starting to overturn a little bit and start throwing things out to the fans, giving them the hype and getting them involved. South Sydney, they just put together their members jersey, which the elements of the jersey were voted on and picked by members.
Okay, yeah.
So there's really interesting things happening in that space. And I think to kind of start giving things out to the fans and to the social media people like yourself and say, hey, Troy, we know you're a big Parra stan. Like, you put this in front of the people. You do the heavy lifting for us. And saving money in a marketing department for a start. Some people might not be happy about losing their jobs. But it's just that real old school, tribalistic fan engagement that rugby league was based on. And I think clubs will be wise, the NRL will be very wise to get on board with that again.
Yeah, probably not the Anzac jersey or the Indigenous jersey, but definitely the home and away jerseys. I've been a big fan of trying to, I guess, get fans and members of a club, probably Parramatta, but other clubs can do it too, but they can submit designs to the club, and then the club can put 10, 12 or whatever designs on their website, and then fans and members can vote on which one they would like as their home and away jersey. And as you said, that gets the fans interaction and the members interaction as well, and it makes them feel a part of the club, and they've made a contribution to it. And look, there's some fantastic designers out there that their talents just get wasted because they come up with these designs and they spruik it to the world, but the clubs just don't take it on board. And I think that's a better way to do it. And as you said, I mean, I'd love to be doing like a social media video of a unboxing or an unpackaging of a Anzac jersey, Indigenous jersey, or whatever. I mean, it's I've seen it before where other big notable social media people have got gifts from other clubs, and it just goes down well. I mean, it doesn't even have to be big notable social media people. It could be a average day fan and member who it can.
The Warriors did that this year. The Warriors have forgotten how to do anything wrong this year.
Yeah,
like having some great football, but off the paddock, the marketing team, the design team, the guys at Dynasty, the guys at One NZ, they are kicking goals. Like every element, they're just getting right, and they're interacting with fans. They're going back to their heritage. They're going back to the local areas. Like they're just getting it. And every other club should be sitting back and saying, why are the Warriors doing it so right, and how do we do it like that? Because they're just kicking every possible goal that you could kick. When they put out their heritage jersey, they sent a bunch out in these special little boxes to people, including a guy called NZ Jersey Hunter, I believe, who's kind of just a famous collector of jerseys. And you flipped open the box and there's a little special message from Charles Nickel-Clockstad in there as well. So great touches. Like, this is stuff that every club should be saying, we only have to make 20 of these and do it. And this is setting us in such good stead. So
that's it. Well, I mean, after I get the Anzac jersey and the heritage jersey, because I still haven't got them yet, but I am getting them. They'll be up to, I think, jersey number 80, I think, in the Parra Cave.
Oh, okay. Wow.
I think it'll be about up to 80, I think. So,
okay.
Yeah, Mum helps me out with a lot of jerseys as well. It's good, the Anzac jersey. It comes around my birthday, so that's easy sort of birthday present. So anyway, well, listeners, thank you very much for listening and watching. Give Thom a follow at Retro Rugba Leeg. As he said, he's got some great content coming your way every single day. Any jersey release or any merchandise release. He's got that covered. He knows the stories. He's got some very interesting content there, and he also sells the odd jersey here and there as well. I saw today you've got the Broncos Diamonds jersey for sale. That
Absolutely,
was
1995. It's the sponsor on is a little faded, but the diamond itself, the jersey is in fantastic condition. And I'm working on cleaning up a North Sydney Bears 96 at the moment too. I just need to get some more time into it.
Well, I'm sure that one will go probably like hotcakes, I reckon, because there's a lot of North Sydney Bears fans out there, as we keep on getting reminded of. So, listeners, give Thom a follow. Thank you very much for joining me tonight and going through the Anzac Round jersey for the Parramatta Eels and a few other clubs as well. Really enjoyed it and gave me a bit more information about it, and I'm sure the listeners as well.
Troy, thanks for having me. It's been a pleasure as always. Parra fans, wish you luck this week against the Cowboys.
Thank you for listening to another episode of the Parra Cave podcast. See you next time.